today's video, we're going to talk about how you can become the narcissist's worst nightmare. So if you don't know Shahida Arabi, you should. This is her book. And Shahida is a YouTuber and an amazing author. And I want to share with you this book because I think if you're interested in studying about narcissism and you want to get a grip on understanding how narcissistic abuse has affected your life, if you're someone who has just been kicked out of a narcissistic relationship, in other words, you've experienced the discard, or if you're somebody who knows someone else who you think might be living with a narcissist or married to a narcissist, this book is a wonderful book to understand what narcissism is all about. And it really gives you practical tools and ideas about how to recover from this thing called narcissistic abuse. You can talk to people who have never been in this type of a relationship, and you can actually be re-traumatized because this is not the average relationship. This is not the average breakup. This is not the average marriage, nor is it the average divorce. If you are the child of a narcissist, you may not be understood by a lot of people that you talk to who don't know what it's like to grow up with a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father. Let's say you're the daughter of a narcissistic mother. Narcissistic mothers have been known to be jealous, envious of their daughters, and it is so unnatural to have this experience as a child, to love your mother and yet be rejected, persecuted, scorned, abandoned, and to have a mother be actually jealous of you. It boggles your mind when you are that child because you know it doesn't make sense and you're traumatized and your brain is triggered and you want to try to explain what you think and feel to people, but you just don't have the words. You know that other people aren't going to get it. You know, narcissistic mothers have been known to show one face in public and there's another face behind closed doors. And this type of abuse, we have to recognize that it doesn't happen out in public in most cases, although some forms of narcissistic abuse do. In most of the cases, narcissistic abuse is happening inside the car when no one else is around. You're getting berated and yelled at and experiencing verbal abuse and worse. Narcissistic abuse happens in the bedroom, in the living room, and in the kitchen when the doors are locked and the windows are closed and there are no neighbors to bear witness to what you're experiencing. And so I think it's awesome that we have the ability today to share our stories, survivor stories with one another. It helps us feel not so crazy and not so invisible. It helps us find a way to feel seen and feel understood that we might not be able to feel in our families. How many of us come from narcissistic families where our siblings are flying monkeys, where a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father has claimed a golden child. And now, as a result of this separation between the siblings and this hierarchy, which is very unnatural, now there is triangulation. Now there is gaslighting, there is projection, there is a feeling of being on the out with the narcissistic mom. And then the children, what do? Do they stick with the narcissistic mom, or do they go against her and risk her wrath? You know, all sorts of terrible things happen when you come from a narcissistic family. And I think one of the most challenging things, aside from what's happening inside the family and inside the relationships, is that there are a lot of people who are just not going to understand. And there are going to be people who will say, oh, you're exaggerating. It can't be that bad. Well, that's someone who never had a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father, or a narcissistic wife, or a narcissistic husband, or a narcissistic neighbor who was just made them the target of a terrible smear campaign online in the neighborhood. If you haven't been the target of someone's persecution and vengeance, and you haven't been drawn in by a narcissist, love bombed, gaslighted, and had your mind twisted, then, if you haven't had that experience, that's awesome. Good for you. And I'm so grateful that you haven't been touched by this. But if you are someone who has been touched by this, you have to recognize that there are going to be times when you try to explain yourself where the words are not going to come, and the intensity that you feel is going to be difficult to share with other people. And that's why I think it's so helpful to come together and share stories, share survivor stories, to read about narcissism, to listen about narcissism, and to gain insight and wisdom, not only from clinicians, but from people who have actually been there, from people who actually have survived. And that's why I really do appreciate the work of Shahida. And so Shahida wrote a book, Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare, How to Devalue, Discard the Narcissist While Supplying Yourself. And it's a bestseller in personality disorders and abuse and sexual abuse, and I believe it's very well deserved. So what I want to do is I want to read you, it's the beginning of the book, page 6 and page 7. She does a wonderful job at helping a survivor understand what she's trying to convey. So if you think about being the victim of narcissistic abuse, what have you gone through, right? You've been idealized, then you've been devalued, you've been gaslighted, you've been projected upon, you've experienced triangulation, a smear campaign, you've been pushed off the pedestal. It's like, a very difficult thing to come back from when you have been lured in and you've been vulnerable with someone and they have been so callous with how they treat you. And so Shahida, again, wants people to, it's all about empowering victims of narcissistic abuse. And I really appreciate her heart. I really appreciate what she brings to the arena. It's purposeful, it's actionable, and it works. And so I just want to read a little bit from her book, and I really hope that if you want to read more, you actually pick her book up. Shahida does not know that I'm doing this video. I'm actually mentioned in the book, but she doesn't know that I'm doing this video. And so I don't want anyone to think that I'm getting a paid endorsement to endorse her book. I'm not. And I don't get any kickback from Shahida. This is me sharing what I believe is very valuable information because I appreciate what she brings to the table. I appreciate that she's bringing life skills. It's not just information, it's really the desire to help you empower your life. And that's what I appreciate in her. So to become a narcissist's worst nightmare, the very same techniques that narcissists use on us are the very same ones we must use to get over them. Confused? Let me explain. I am not suggesting becoming a narcissist ourselves or being cruel. Not at all. These techniques will not be employed in the same way as a narcissist uses them. They will be adapted to detach from the narcissist altogether. Read the following and see if you agree with me here. So what Shahida is saying is that essentially you're going to turn the tables on a narcissist, and that this is going to allow you to detach mentally, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually so that you can find the space to heal. So she goes on to say, you once idealized the narcissist, put him or her on a pedestal after he or she did the same to you. You saw them as the love of your life. At least you saw their false self as the love of your life. Now you must devalue and discard the narcissist, both in your mind and in your physical reality, if you're still maintaining contact with him or her somehow. In this book, these terms will not only be explained in the context of abuse, but be adapted to the survivor's own journey of detaching and healing from a narcissist. So here Shahida is saying that in order to heal from narcissistic abuse, you're going to have to devalue who the narcissist is in your life. You're going to have to discard the narcissist from your life, literally get them out of your life. Go no contact, gray rock, shutty shutty as I say. But you're going to have to devalue the importance that they have over you. So that is a very important step. Devaluing the narcissist means reconnecting with the reality of who the narcissist is, not who you wish them or her to be, the false self they once presented to you. In essence, devaluing in this context means dismantling your perception of their false self and replacing it with the reality of their true self, their abusive self. Discarding the narcissist means going no contact with the narcissist, or low contact if you share children, have legal matters to sort out with the narcissist, or have any other circumstances that prevent you from cutting all ties with this person. This involves giving yourself closure by not giving the narcissist any. So discarding the narcissist means that you're cutting ties. Just like the narcissist uses this as a weapon of destruction against you. They pull you in, they don't like what you say, or they find another source of narcissistic supply that meets their need in the moment, and they discard you, they devalue you. So what Shahida is suggesting that to become the narcissist's worst nightmare, to make the narcissist miserable, you have to learn to devalue and discard the narcissist yourself. Re-idealizing and supplying yourself refers to using the tips and tools I mentioned in Chapter 3 to release the toxic brainwashing from your narcissistic partner and begin to heal some of the biochemical and trauma bonds that have tethered you to the narcissistic abuse. This also involves creating a healthier, positive, reverse discourse that substitutes self-defeating beliefs with empowering ones about yourself. So re-idealizing means that you're going to essentially begin to take care of yourself. So you are going to begin nurturing yourself, having self-compassion for yourself, right? So instead of idealizing someone else, you take all of this amazing mojo, all this amazing energy, and the ability to idealize it all. And you're going to give that ability to yourself. You're going to start esteeming yourself. Triangulation in this case means welcoming new people into your life that will serve as a support network to you during this time. All this time, the narcissist has triangulated you with others to validate their own sense of superiority. Now, you must triangulate your narcissist with a new support system to validate your experiences. This is not meant to make the narcissist jealous. It is meant to give you, yourself, the resources and empowerment you need to heal. Very, very important that you think about this idea of triangulation when it comes to becoming the narcissist nightmare. So rather than stay isolated, rather than avoid your family, rather than avoid your best friend, right? So many people who suffer from narcissistic abuse are ashamed. Maybe your family told you, don't get involved with her or don't get involved with him. And now all of their fears have been proven and now they're justified. And you might be embarrassed. It's really important that you don't get stuck in that space. That's exactly where an abuser, where a narcissist wants you to sit. They want you in that space of isolation. They don't want you to reach out for help. So the first thing that you have to do is triangulate them back, according to Shahida. At least this is one of the things that she suggests you do to become a narcissist's worst nightmare, is to use triangulation to empower you so you get right back into the swing of things. You reach out to your friends. If those friends aren't there for you that you used to hang out with, then you find a new network of people who understand where you're coming from. When you do this, you're essentially triangulating the narcissist out of this new community of people who will build you up and who will support you on the road to recovery. Due to your empathy and ability to emotionally connect, this triangulation has the added benefit of adding to your psychological resilience. Having at least one person who has your back and can snap you back to reality, who knows what you've been through, is invaluable. Having a whole community of other survivors who have your back, well, now You're bound to be invincible. Shahida also goes on to explain reverse gaslighting. Reverse gaslighting means that whenever the narcissist tries to pull a fast one on you, being able to use the knowledge about their manipulative tactics can help you distance yourself. This means go no contact or low contact in response to their silent treatment, their stonewalling, and their petty put-downs and manipulation in order to prevent yourself from being pulled right back into their mind games. Reverse gaslight the narcissist by saying mentally to their accusations, projections, and gaslighting tactics, I don't believe you. That's not what happened. I know my truth, and I own my truth. Reverse gaslighting the narcissist is not actually gaslighting. It involves staying grounded in your reality and your own powerful truth while invalidating the lies of the narcissist. This will help to relieve some of the cognitive dissonance you may have been experiencing as a result of being in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser who often distorts and manipulates your perception of reality. Shahida goes on to say, create a false self for the time being that serves as armor if and when you have to interact with the narcissist or even just start ruminating over them. This self is the strong, logical self that you must wear as you begin to detach and heal from a narcissist. The one you may not feel like during the no contact or low contact, but the one you must be in order to resist their attempts to re-traumatize you and bring you back into the relationship by pressing the reset buttons. Use this self to interact with the narcissist if you have to interact with them. Using the false self enables you to be self-protective, centered, and unreactive. Mirror them when you have to, much like they mirrored you during the idealization phase, by withdrawing from them when they withdraw, rather than pleading and begging for them. Strive not to mirror them when they attempt to pull you back into the trauma of the relationship. Do not share secrets and do not make them privy to your innermost feelings. In fact, I encourage you not to disclose anything about your personal life once you've realized your partner may be a narcissist. You are permitted to stop giving any information in the case where the narcissist may try to emotionally blackmail or manipulate you. They played mind games all along. Now it's their turn to not have the facts at hand. Another thing that she suggests that we do to become the narcissist's worst nightmare is finally think of the narcissist as supply. You do not need them because you have other sources of attention, healthier resources. You can think of them as rotten supply. They cannot work for you anymore because they are not functional adults in relationships. They are children in adult bodies doing real harm to others. So you see, it's not about becoming the narcissist, stooping down to their level, or even counter-manipulating them. It's about conquering your own thoughts, your beliefs and actions regarding the narcissist and adapting the very same techniques that he or she used to entrap you in the first place, except in this case, you use them to set yourself free. Narcissists underestimate a survivor's willpower, you see. A survivor who has been discarded and has nothing left to lose is capable of every success imaginable. Ultimately, it is not your ability to beat the narcissist at his or her own game that frightens them. Playing games with someone with no remorse or empathy is sure to fail. Rather, it is your ability to seek your own validation and move forward into your success, channeling the experiences that were meant to destroy you into your greatest victories. That is appalling to the predators. How dare their former victims become independent of their bullying and become even greater in spite of it? Oh, but they can, and they will. So that's just page 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? Shahida does an amazing job at helping a survivor of narcissistic abuse dig deep and understand what went wrong. You know, a big problem I think that so many narcissistic abuse survivors have is that they don't understand what happened. It feels like an emotional relationship hit and run. It's like, how did I get here? You know, I love this person. This person said that they love me. This person met my family. This person wanted to meet my children. They lack empathy. They don't have the same emotional responses that a healthy person would to someone else's pain. They might scan the environment and they might think, oh, this is the way I have to act because that person just said something sad or, harmful or whatever, or this is an emotional moment. I need to act like I'm upset about it, right? But it's not real, and it's used to make sure that you remain a source of narcissistic supply. And it's difficult. It's difficult to wake up one day and recognize that you have been entrapped by someone with narcissism, that you love someone or you love their false self, but you don't know that. And when you start to awaken from the idea that you loved someone's false self, that is very mind-bending. That is like some Twilight stuff, like Twilight Zone stuff, like what is really going on here? Like, who is this person? What did I have with you? Like, what was this relationship all about? If you could devalue me, if you could discard me, if you can cheat on me, if you can mock me, if you can make fun of the way I smile, make fun of the way that I walk, make fun of the way that I talk, put me down in front of our children, triangulate me to my own family. Like, what is happening here? I thought that you loved me. You said you loved me. And coming out of that and recognizing narcissistic abuse for narcissistic abuse, once you recognize narcissistic abuse for what it is, it can be very, very healing, because that's when the pieces of the puzzle start to make sense. When you begin to realize that you married someone who had no intention of getting from point A to point B, then you begin to understand your personal frustration. To become a narcissist's worst nightmare really is to regain your independence. It really is to regain your autonomy. It really is the ability to see the narcissist fully and not through rose-colored glasses, which is really hard, because when you start to accept what you have been involved with, you have to face the grief, the loneliness, the shame, the abandonment, the trauma of what just happened. And like I said, it feels like a relationship hit and run. And no, it's not easy to heal from narcissistic abuse. Someone in my family that I love very much is still on the recovery path from this. And it absolutely has felt like, even to us, like a hit and run, like what happened. A narcissist doesn't have remorse. A narcissist is on to the next victim, on to the next source of narcissistic supply, and you're left with all this baggage, all of this emotional baggage. You've given your heart to someone and it has been used for their own gain. And so it takes time to see what happened and to understand narcissistic abuse for what it is, to understand the phase and the cycle of narcissistic abuse. Now, if you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, that's confusing, because you want to know why they treated you the way they treated you. And to me, it mirrors like when we were children. When you're a child and you're being pushed away by mommy or daddy and you're being abandoned, rejected, or persecuted, that your little mind thinks it's all your fault. You assume blame for it, right? And so our little minds go, oh, it's my fault. And we think maybe if I get an A, or maybe if I'm quiet, or maybe if I find a way to be good enough, then maybe mommy will love me, maybe daddy will love me. There's some hope at the end of that. It's dysfunctional, because the reality is a child is not responsible for the abandonment of mother or father or the neglect of mother and father. But when you're a little child, thinking that maybe it's your fault gives you a little bit of hope that maybe one day, maybe one day, maybe one day. When you're dealing as an adult with a narcissist and you're trying to make sense out of the abuse, and there's no way to make sense out of it, you stay on that path. You keep trying to make them happy. So if they're upset because the potatoes weren't warm enough, you make sure that they're warm enough the next day. Or if they're upset that you went out with your friends, then you make sure not to go out with your friends, or you make sure to ask for permission, or you have a friend ask them for permission for you. You're just always fumbling for a way to try to make the narcissist happy. You're trying to figure out how to make them happy. And that's part of the problem. So if you want to become a narcissist's worst nightmare, then I think that Shahida's advice is pretty on point. You have to turn the tables. You have to devalue them. You have to idealize yourself. You have to discard them. You have to triangulate them. You have to gaslight them with, no, that's not true. You have to hold on to yourself. You have to seek independence. What a narcissist wants is a narcissist wants enmeshment. They want to have control over your mind, body, and soul. So you deciding where you're going to go, who you're going to hang out with, what you're going to say, what you think and what you feel and what you believe. You deciding about what is your next move. You deciding whether or not you want to talk to them or you don't want to talk to them. You taking back control. You finding your independence. You saying enough is enough. Bye, Felicia. That's how you become the narcissist's worst nightmare. I just want to say thank you to Shahida for this amazing book, and for anyone out there who is struggling with narcissistic abuse. I want to thank you for staying on this path. I want you to understand that as you heal the darkness within that's been created because of childhood or a repetition of childhood neglect inside an adult relationship, I need you to know, I'd like you to know that as you heal from that, you become more light-bodied. In other words, you find the light within. You're overcoming this darkness. You're overcoming these wounds. You're processing what has been. So you're releasing this negative energy within you. And when you do that, guess what? You become a lighter being. You become able to enhance your own light and take in more love. And what does that do? That makes your life better. That makes the planet better. That makes the lives of your children better. And everyone that you know, as you heal, you help heal the world. So I just want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being on this path. And I want to encourage you to keep going and learning everything that you can about narcissistic abuse, because that's the last thing a narcissist wants you to do. A narcissist doesn't want you to go no contact. A narcissist doesn't want you to devalue them. A narcissist doesn't want you to discard them. Narcissist doesn't want you to triangulate them. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. A narcissist doesn't want you to say no. A narcissist doesn't want you to gain your independence, gain your autonomy. The way I was able to pull myself away from this is I submerged myself in codependent recovery or codependency recovery. You know, I learned everything I could about growing up in a dysfunctional home and being around the codependent narcissistic mommy and daddy and absorbing all of those rules and not realizing they became my subconscious set point, and that this became a way of life for me, repeating this pattern. I didn't know that. But once I realized that, once I went to therapy, I was diagnosed with codependency and depression. That's when I was put on the right path. And that's when I read Codependent No More, another amazing book. If you're interested in the codependency and narcissism dynamic, I would definitely check out Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. Great book, helped me put the pieces of the puzzle together. At the end of the day, we're all here to evolve. And when you have been abused by a narcissist, they kind of like expunge your light a little bit, right? That's what they want to do. And when you heal from narcissistic abuse, what ends up happening is you find your light opens up, and you have the ability to become more bright than you ever have in your life. It does take time. In my case, I had to go through a number of relationships after my first divorce to like really get this in my head, you know, because the first time wasn't enough. I had to go through it again and again and again until finally, for me, the big aha moment the last time I was in a relationship was I was still ignoring red flags. There were still red flags that my internal guidance system was telling me about, and I still denied them. I still went, no, I can't be. Even though every fiber in my being said, look at that, look at that, look at that. My instincts told me. And turns out that I was right in the end. Once I verified this gut instinct, turns out that I was right. So I think that's a big thing that we have to get back to. We have to get back into alignment with our internal guidance system, right? But we also have to give ourselves a break, because if you came from a dysfunctional home, guess what? You've been taught not to trust that internal guidance system. And dear one, that is absolutely not your fault. If you want to become a narcissist's worst nightmare, it's important that you check out Shahida's book, and you also consider the tips and tricks that she offers us so willingly and so honestly on her YouTube channel. I will add a link to Shahida's YouTube channel in the description box. go say hello, go let her know you saw this video, and encourage her to keep doing what she's doing, because she makes the world a better place too. Namaste, everybody. Until next time. Bye for now. I bow to the love and the light that is absolutely in you. Bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video, and don't forget to click the link below so you can take the Codependency Quiz. Now, when you grow up in a home where you feel invisible, you have to understand that you're part of a certain system. You're part of a particular paradigm. And this paradigm can be completely corrupt.